Yeah, so welcome to our second event in frames of DATAS residency. My name is Mikhailo Gluboki. I'm development director of Изоляция Foundation, and we are running this new virtual online residency this year, which is dedicated to the topic of private data privacy, especially in Eastern Partnership region. We are working with our colleagues from Slovenia. It's a project at all. We are working with our friends from Czech Republic, Meat Factory, I'm sorry, and also Goethe Institute Prague, and with our friends from Tallinn Art Hall in Estonia. So all of those organizations are hosting different artists from all around the Eastern Partnership countries and Central and Eastern Europe. And the results of those residencies will be presented in Prague next year in Rudolfinium Gallery, which is going to be a big, really exciting event and a great representation of artistic reflections on topics of private data and data in general in the context of Eastern and Central Europe and Eastern Partnership countries. And today we mark we can say the completion of the residency of our first group of artists, the Sfera collective, who will speak about their residency and the projects that they developed during this period. And I invite Lucy Nichai, who is the curator of the residency, to present our guests and talk a little bit more about the event. Thank you so much for coming today. Last thing I wanted also to say, if you have questions, please post them in chat, either here in Zoom or in YouTube, where the live stream is available. We will read them at the end of the event and also address them to the speakers. So thank you so much. And Lucy, it's your turn.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Good evening for everybody. And I thank you people who join us in the Zoom and also who will watching us in YouTube, or also we had a stream on Facebook on a page of Изоляция Foundation. And yes, today we will have the discussion, Sfera and the myth of techno-utopian visions. And today they have this amazing group of artists who created I think it's new and first collaboration, and I think it's the same collaboration would become the start of the new collective I don't know, some new step in the career as a collective. Yes, it's this project absolutely amazing, and we're happy to be the part of this development of this project. And yes, I was very I don't know, engaged very close to this each step to discussion and create an idea and develop this new step. And thanks of Sfera collective, we also met amazing artist Weronika Lewandowska, who very kind to agree to moderate this final presentation. And it's a fantastic thing what we will have the nice, I don't know, like artistic talk, what we call the data talks today. And I hope we will have this nice evening together. Yes, and I think I just give the floor for Veronica, Ula, Marco, and Sylvia. Very welcome, and I'm very happy to see you together.
Thank you for inviting me to moderate this discussion. I've been reflecting for some time on data and sensors in art, so I'm especially glad to have the chance to ask you a few questions today, of course, after your presentation, because I know you all prepare something for us to understand more the process and the idea behind your project, which was part of this residency. So first, I will give the floor to you, and then we come back to our discussion conversation.
All right, thank you, Veronica. Then yeah, first, hello from me as well. I will share the screen of our presentation quickly. So I hope that worked for everyone. Do you see it? Okay.
Yes.
Then I think we're ready to start.
Okay, so yeah, I'll start then from a quick introduction of who we are or what Sfera is. The collective comprises of myself, Marco, and Ula, and essentially we're a research-driven collective, and our work spans digital art, media theory, and immersive production. And our practice surrounds the critical exploration of social and economic structures, speculative aesthetics, and how technological mediation propels many of the socioeconomic developments we see today. And all three of us met during our studies at an art university, where we specialized in 3D game engines. And since then, we've been collaborating on the creation of digital environments and interaction aesthetics. And we're happy to also give you an introduction of who we are as individuals as well and what our interests are. So I will start from myself. Um, I'm Sylvia. I'm a researcher and digital artist. I was originally trained in photography, after which my focus shifted to new media, technology, and design. And currently, I'm also pursuing a second master's in social and political thought. Um, and my practice now is a fusion of all of these different inputs where I also study hypothesized social and economic systems and how they circulate through technologies. So this also includes looking into the blockchain, gaming environments, and internet subcultures. And maybe next, Ula, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Ula. I have background in visual anthropology and immersive media. I'm focused on documentary XR works that are usually socially driven. So here you can see myself in the headset in my project Swarm, that is about a group of protesting women in Poland and a group of swarming bees. I like experimenting with different forms as well. So on the right, you can see my algorithmic textile piece. And yeah, next Winter, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. So yeah, hi, I'm Marco, or yeah, as many people call me, just Winter by my last name. So don't be confused if if you hear Winter today. But yeah, I'm a digital artist and data analyst with a background in media theory as well as media art. And currently, I'm working on my master thesis in creative technologies, which investigates the influence of ontology, aesthetics, and that media in contemporary indie video games. So, my main interest in the context of that thesis, as well as our project now together, is how past technologies and their associated social imaginaries influence the present and how we think about the future now in our present. So for this residency, we have been developing our first project together, our first official project, Sfera, which is called Anthrome. And first, we'd like to talk a little bit about our conceptual inspirations behind the project. So the original inspiration behind Anthrome conceptually was the idea of libertarian exit. And in short, libertarian exit is to exit our existing economic, political, and legal systems to found new autonomous cities, nations, or even off-world colonies. And what's underlying many of these projects is the idea that if multiple jurisdictions, multiple of these exit projects would exist side by side, the governments would be forced to compete for residents and businesses, just like companies have to compete for customers. So governance and sovereignty would essentially turn into a kind of privatized business. Libertarian exit often draws on the myth of the American frontier, the dream of some unclaimed land that is ready for colonization. And the Seasteading Institute here, for example, advocates the colonization of international waters with these floating platforms, which would then join together into new micronations. And if you would dislike one of the forms of governments that these new micronations would have, you would simply take your floating platform and move to a different one. That's the idea behind seasteading. Another exit project is the self-proclaimed first digital nation called Praxis, which aims to, as you can see here on their website, reclaim the West by founding a new eternal city like Rome, from which the Praxians hope to expand into a kind of intergalactic empire by colonizing space, which is then also meant to be modeled after ancient imperial Rome. So, yeah, as you can imagine, neither the Seasteading Institute nor Praxis have yet manifested in any physical way. But there are some exit projects that actually have achieved that. So, one example for an existing libertarian exit project is the charter city Prospera, which exists on the territory of Honduras. So, they're in this little, charter city enclave. They, for example, offer completely unregulated genetic research for companies and their residents.
Yeah, and so to understand why these projects, which are sometimes somewhat bizarre, are forming, we took a step back to see what historical processes forms this tech-fueled desire for exit. And yeah, so when we look at these contemporary exit projects that that were just introduced, we can see that they still echo the logics of the Californian ideology. And for anyone who hasn't come across this term before, it was a term coined by Richard Barbrook and Andy Cameron in the 1990s. They noticed this really peculiar mix of ideas coming out of Silicon Valley. On the one hand, you would have this celebration of the lone entrepreneur, a near heroic figure who disrupts everything and builds the future. But at the same time, this future was supposed to be built using new technologies. And technologies have always historically developed with collective effort. It's only thanks to shared infrastructures, public research, and collaboration that, yeah, the development of new technologies was possible. So the Californian ideology essentially mashed together a kind of bohemian counterculture, this idea of freedom, creativity, and the drop out and do your own thing. And combine this with a strong dislike of government and regulation at the same time. The fundamental belief was that technology, together with free markets, could basically replace politics, and that innovation itself would solve all social problems. And to understand where this attitude comes from, it's important to go back another 2 decades to the new communalists, which formed in the 60s and 70s. These were people who performed a literal exit. They decided to leave their lives in cities to build rural communities. And with the conviction that they could invent new forms of living outside of mainstream institutions. And many of these new communalists also shared a distrust of centralized authority and placed a near utopian faith in tools, environments, design, and technology. And I don't mean to conflate them with the exit projects that we were looking at before. These communes were extremely varied in their nature and ideas. But certain ideas from this movement did spill into the Silicon Valley later, even if selectively so. And most notably, one of the outcomes of that lineage was the Biosphere 2 project in Arizona in the early 90s. It was also conceptualized by one of these countercultural communes. It consisted of a massive closed ecosystem that was built as a model for survival and study of the world. By the media, in fact, it was even presented as a prototype for space colonization. And the nature of this project did already illustrate some contradictions from the projects mentioned before. It had a utopian rhetoric of this of rebuilding the world or of space colonization, but then was at the same time mixed with private funding, corporate control, and ultimately it produced a high-tech spectacle for media and investors.
So this is how the Biosphere 2 looked like. The idea of the project was to test if humans could live in closed systems, simulating Earth's atmosphere, to see if moving to Mars is a real possibility. The system looked like that. That's 8 people lived there inside of 7 domes for 2 years. Sharing the space with around 4,000 species selected from all over the world, sometimes in a bizarre way. And those domes represented different ecosystems. So we had a rainforest, an ocean reef, a desert, a farmland for growing the foods, and living quarters for the people. Biosphere's design drew on very influential Buckminster Fuller's concept of spaceship Earth, which imagined Earth as a closed, self-sustaining, regulated system where all the energy flows and all the data flows and circulates. And it was kind of incorporating all their holistic concepts of nature. But as you can see on these photos, it didn't really work out as it was supposed to. Already at the very beginning of the project, due to cloudy weather, there were some challenges. And the system just wasn't as stable as it was supposed to be. The biggest problems were with food production. So the first months were very cloudy and the crops wouldn't grow as fast as the experiment was predicting. All the pollinators died, so production of the new foods became impossible. And also there were several pests and insects and cockroaches multiplying everywhere. And what is the most interesting for us, what was the most critical for the project are those rapid oxygen drops. And here, as you can see on the graph on the slide, the oxygen levels dropped quite radically. So living in the biosphere was impossible. But this very collapse of biosphere became the inspiration for our project.
After all this background and research information, we can now present what our project actually is. So Anthrome is a room-scale audiovisual installation that simulates a hyperreal biosphere. It runs from a game engine and reacts in real time to whatever space it's placed into. Data from the exhibition space gradually leaks into what looks like a self-contained simulation. So this artificial garden slowly reveals that it's actually entangled in with the real world outside of it. These readings come from oxygen and carbon dioxide sensors that are continually monitoring the composition of these gases in the room. So the data from the sensors is streamed directly into the simulation, and any changes or even very small changes in the data can cause intense changes within this digital biome.
Next to the Biosphere 2 project, we also have a second source of visual inspiration, which is the Garden of Eden. And although they don't really mention it explicitly, the rhetoric and visual aesthetic of many of these libertarian exit projects, and they often evoke the idea of Eden as the sanctuary of purity, where humanity might return to someday, and then, yeah, from which they might begin anew. But yeah, embedded in this dream of Eden is also always the threat of expulsion. So yeah, you could say that every Eden already contains its own fall, that the promise of perfect harmony is always stalked by the threat of contamination from the outside or by the fear of a return to wilderness. So what is imagined as absolute purity can quickly harden into sterility or mutate into captivity, a garden that sustains life only by constraining it. And the Biosphere 2 project could also be understood as a project in the creation of an endemic, perfected garden that is meant to represent Earth. And the project used numerous environmental sensors to understand and control the biomes as much as possible. But as you already heard from Ula, that really didn't help them in the end. The project faced numerous issues. And similarly, our project Anthrome will also not remain this perfect garden. Instead, we will take this fragility of the data and the unreliability as a starting point, and our garden will change over the course of the exhibition. It will evolve in reaction to the changes in the atmosphere that we detect with the sensors, and the leaves might wither away, or the entire garden might turn into some kind of hypnagogic dream.
So in Anthrome, we drew on Bruno Latour's concept of a critical zone. And this is the concept that comes from geoscience. It describes this thin layer that is sustaining life on Earth. But Latour introduced this concept to arts, proposing setting up small critical zones that are observatories of Earth that will help us understand the planet better. So in our installation, the next slide, please. We shaped a small critical zone. So it's also a small observatory where data serves as both narrative and a critical tool for the visitors. We are building here on the reflection that data is never fully objective and never truly representing the truth or facts. And that's why in our words, the data is building and destroying the words. Yeah, that's the end of our presentation. Thank you very much. We are ready for the questions.
Okay, super.
But now we stop
From my questions and my comments. So, yeah, first of all, my congratulations on such a complex project and idea. I see three amazing artists sitting in front of me with a strong background in technology and interdisciplinary, very rich research, which is behind your project. And of course, mix of skills, a lot of different skills and reflection on many aspects attached to it. So I'm super curious what will come up from this project, what this residency brought you, and also what kind of challenges you met. But first, I would like to build my own context, how I really read what you said, because Ula, you brought here Latour and his concepts, and I really like this approach to data which you presented in the project. I think it's very crucial to be critical to see how it reflects real world and what is kind of optic for it to interpret a real world and facts. And this is something what I think we all need to understand. It's kind of digital literacy which is behind it. So we need to shape our skills. And I think about it as because this is sensor-based environment, what you are building, and it brings technology very close to our body, to the nature, to our nerve system as well. And I think it reminds me of Roy Scott and the idea of moist media, when you really you are in a hybrid situation in between something what is digital and biological. So I see there is this kind of influence, and we can also talk about it, how you do that. And also on the other side, I can reflect on it and through this perspective of what Shoshana Zuboff said about data capitalism, about behavioral data, which are gathered by the system, and if our data are reduced to only some kind of signals for prediction or for even for control. So this is there is a lot of things we can talk about today. And I think we will start with something what really reflects on you all as a one team, I mean as a collective, because I'm very curious how do you work together, what is behind this collective and behind this structure, and if there are some data already shaping a relationship with your practice. So maybe you can reflect on it and give us some recipe how to really start building collective, and what does it mean to you?
So this is our first project together, and it's our first project outside of the university context. So I think we are learning right now and experimenting and trying different things out. So it's a phase of negotiation, I would say. So we kind of naturally are leaning to some roles that maybe also we took with us since years already. And it's working very well, but let's see how it's gonna change in the next projects. I kind of also was thinking about what you're saying about data shaping. That was the part of the question, how data is shaping our collaboration. And the only data in this context, I'm thinking about our rules of the free market. I think we are very far from this influence. We are for sure not thinking economically in our works. We have some other motivation and urges. Maybe the other point would be to talk about what tools do we use to control the data, but we also don't have any workflow established yet. So actually during the residency, we had a chance to work with this other collective, rybn.org, with an established collective, and it was very nice for us to ask them questions and to have these peers in being a collective.
But you all have different kind of skills around data, yes, as I understand. Like, for example, Ula, how do you use data in your part of work?
Okay, so my understanding of data is, so I'm not a data analyst like some other from us, from our collective. So maybe Winter can say something more about that in the second. For me, maybe it was the first time consciously using data. So I did some experiments with the sensors, and it was fun. I ended up with streams of numbers for many Excel pages and needed to sort it out. And it actually also started our discussions how to work with this data further. Maybe Winter, would you like to say something about this data?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what is interesting about data in this context, or what is quite unique from more of a traditional data science perspective, is that it's real-time data. So normally also like how I got into the whole field, let's say, was through cleaning messy and large data sets. But these data sets exist already. They exist as a file on your hard drive, and then you go through them. But in our case, everything works in real time. So we have, as I think Sylvia mentioned it during the presentation, we're using Unreal Engine as a real-time engine that can react then to the data, so we don't have to script this reactive behavior in any way. But what that means for working with this data then is that we are not looking at a ready, finished data set, and then we think about how to visualize it, how to clean it, how to map it and such, but that all of these things need to happen in real time. So we have to think ahead. So the step of deciding how to transform the data kind of moves more to the front in the process, and is something that we have to implement on this real-time level. And I think that's quite interesting here about this project. And I think that highlights even more how whenever you work with data, you are manipulating it, and you are changing it, and you are adjusting it to your needs. And in this project, this is especially, I think, obvious because, even before it goes into the simulation, we have to pre-plan these rules, these thresholds, sort of. And I think that was, one of the main topics that we then also discussed with our BN during the residency. And what makes this project unique from my perspective, from
and
data
I also,
perspective.
as I understand it, it's also a challenge, to keep the system stable, and you are really working with something what is alive, like the real organism. So it's changing, and I can imagine it can be a challenge. And Sylvia, what is your engagement with data for this project?
Well, I have also worked with the sensors to my excitement and sometimes misery because data is very unpredictable. But I think also during this residency, I really uh, I guess I approached it also conceptually a lot. Also, the fact that the sensors were causing me so much misery, and the fact that I wasn't able to get the results that I wanted, and instead I started looking into messy data and seeing how the mess can be embraced, and how sometimes results that don't seem productive can actually be in some way also freeing, and produce more interesting results, and also looking even how noise can serve as a tool for resistance and for hiding and obscuring things that you don't necessarily want to be in the control of others. So I think I had this journey from seeing the mess and then embracing the mess and then learning how to work with the mess.
I believe it's very abstract mess, and this is something what we actually don't see when we enter we will enter your exhibition, so your installation. So I'm very curious, is it like from entry to exit, or maybe from exit to entry? Because as I imagine myself moving through your installation, I wonder, how do you envision the experience of this environment, this simulation of world, for the visitor? What kind of perception, interaction, or embodiment do you hope to invite as one pass through it? Just to understand more, what's the experience of the public entering your abstract data setting?
Who wants to start?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, coming back to this idea also of the unpredictability and maybe a certain mystery surrounding the interaction in the project itself. I think of the visitors stepping in front of the work as themselves sort of entering a system, because then by being measured through the sensors, or even just by being in the same room, they become part of the system of the biosphere that is being measured as the atmosphere in the room, the concentration of the gases. But it is something that you cannot completely control consciously, let's say. I mean, there will be a reaction by you just being there, but your direct input into this data and into the project is limited. I mean, you can try to breathe a lot or breathe really fast, do some exercises, or I don't know. I mean, people might come up with some crazy ideas, but I think this is also what will make it interesting. That you kind of become part of the system, also a little bit, whether you like it or not, and then you have to explore your place in that, the power you have in that, and then maybe also exiting it again, and what influence that has as well. But of course, when you exit the room, you cannot really see directly the result of that, so it will always be a bit bit of a mystery, I think.
Is it a social experience, or like I am entering alone and I am seeing what kind of agency I have by myself?
I think we had discussions about it, and we don't fully agree among ourselves. So I would like to see it as a social interaction and a space for people to interact with each other, in the space that also becomes an actor in the space, and then the participants can find out together what's happening and what is their input on the project, or not, because they are there anyways. There is no escape. I mean, escape is through the door of the exhibition. But yeah, we have some disagreements on that.
I mean, I think maybe like the project doesn't directly like promote people to be like, hey, talk to each other. How's the data influencing it? But I actually, to produce the most significant results, like let's say for the CO2 level to shift dramatically, there does have to be a certain amount of people in the room to produce very visual results. But it doesn't necessarily have to be social. They just end up in the same room at the same time, or someone goes and grabs 30 friends and wants to see what happens. Then that part, I guess, is a bit unpredictable.
So my presence inside your installation can actually ruin the system, or do you have any recipe if I want to keep it stable and sustainable? What kind of things I shouldn't like breathe, yeah? Or what's the situation, like the perfect situation for this algorithm?
I mean, I think that what our whole concept for this project is to really focus actually on fragility, because when we're talking about also these contemporary exit projects, they're extremely fragile, because there's one law that comes in, there's one technicality, there's one reality that comes in that makes these projects impossible, and they are extremely fragile because they are such utopian and also very problematic ideas at the same time. So we wanted our project to also be extremely fragile. And I think that there's actually no way that you could prevent disaster from happening, or it's not actually disaster that's happening there, but the simulation itself will break and react in unexpected ways, just because of the noise of the data itself, that the data itself is unpredictable. The sensors introduce their own peculiarities, but also, yeah, it's supposed to be a delicate system. So I think even if the oxygen concentration shifts very slightly in the room, which it does shift very slightly, it doesn't produce massive shifts, of course. then that would already cause something. So yeah, the agency is somewhat limited, but there is some agency in there as well. Yeah.
So I believe you haven't tested yet for the prototype for the exhibition. So it's just on the corner, behind the corner, waiting for you. This moment when you will test it with some people. Yeah. So this is more like a still development of the installation, and I believe that a huge part of this development was actually this residency. And how did this residency influence your project? Did it shift your direction or open up unexpected pathways in development? What changed in your processes through that context of the residency? Is there, could you share some thoughts about the process you had during this residency?
What was the process during the residency?
Yes, how the residency influenced your project.
I think we were encouraged to play more with the data and to embrace the playful aspect of the work. I think we maybe started very worried in the sense we didn't know how can we work with the data in a sense that is moral or ethical or good for our participants. So we were putting a lot of thought about it. But I think the good advice our mentors gave us is to embrace this playfulness and to mess up with the data even more. So it really gave us a lot of encouragement to just not to be so worried in this world and give us permission to have some joy as well.
And actually, what was how did it look like, the work with experts and mentors, and what this kind of situation brought to the process?
I mean, so yeah, we had regular meetings with the mentors, and I guess their approach was really not to tell us what to do, but just to ask questions, and through these questions guide us in certain directions, but also just provide us with additional resources that we just haven't seen before or haven't known of. That was also extremely, I think, helpful in the development. And yeah, and I mean, I think I can just also repeat what Ula said, that it was also really just thinking about if things go wrong or if it doesn't behave the way that you want, then how can you embrace that? So, for example, the computer crashes, everything breaks. Then maybe there is some way to actually make this more yeah, interesting and playful, and maybe actually enable the audience, for example, to be able to restart the computer, and exploring these kinds of yeah, different possibilities of interactions when things go wrong, and especially when they go wrong.
And yeah, I think to add to this, I think what really helped us, or me at least, the most was yeah, to talk to these people who've already done so many extremely complicated data projects, and then to see that yeah, the confidence that they have when it comes to these questions, because yeah, as we said before, we were very worried about some aspects, like especially is this data representational? Is it personal data? Is it okay to record it? Do we have to get some acceptance from the visitors first, because before we record the sensor data and so on. But the approach that RYBN has to these questions is, I think also from just their sheer experience, is to just see kind of what happens and to play with it and to experiment with it, and also to be not afraid to manipulate the data in very conscious and direct ways, because I think they were just more aware of the fact how strong this bias in data really is than we were initially.
Yeah, I think it's great you are using live data and the situation, like the situation which is present inside the room. I remember we met in during Baldocs and XR Academy. You were part of this program. And actually, I remember that you wanted to work with data from the internet. Yes, so are you still doing that, or you brought something else to this project because of this residency?
Do you want to start, Sylvia?
Yeah, I can go ahead.
Yeah, you can go.
I think we also kind of realized also we're coming, the three of us are coming from different backgrounds. I'm coming maybe from a more like arts traditional, or I don't know, that I'm used to like galleries and art spaces and stuff like that. And for example, Ula comes very much from the XR industry, and she kind of has that we have very different methods of thinking about how to approach these projects, and especially because we're a Baldocs, and then we presented a project that was supposed to be a hybrid of these two. We kind of realized that different spaces also require the project to shift. And we developed this idea for this internet conversations to sort of create a narrative for this. So these are internet conversations that would come from online discussion forums surrounding these exit projects that Winter introduced before. To give the project a bit of narrative, because especially in XR spaces and these more film-focused spaces, narrative is of course much more of a driver. But then when you look at it in different spaces, more in the context of a gallery, then the narrative, while important, can of course be more mysterious or more hidden, or just not simply so much in the forefront. And I think that's why we decided to continue our research still with these online discussion forums, but perhaps develop a new project from that. And for this project, really to embrace the sensor data and really work with the sensor data, and kind of also relatively to which space we will be exhibiting at as well.
Going into the residency, we one of the first feedbacks that we got was actually that everyone really loved the sensor data idea. So there was a bit of a bummer for us at first, because we had this idea, oh, now we have this extra layer with all this with the social media narrative that Sylvia described. But at that point already, we were struggling, I think, to combine everything into one cohesive work. And then going off this positive feedback towards the sensors that irritated us at first, but then we realized, I mean, it's actually very nice that everyone thinks that the sensors make the project unique, that we decided to really focus on the sensor, and to have the smaller focus for this project. And also, once again, as a result of these conversations with RYBN, to reduce this narrative aspect maybe a little bit, or we just realized that maybe it's not necessary. Maybe for this project we can stay in this more experimental framework, and I think it works well now. And I think there's a much stronger identity now to the project than at the beginning of the residency.
Ula, would you like to add something to that?
I made some notes throughout what's been said until now. So my notes are about data manipulation. So I think the main tool of narration and maybe focus is the work with data itself, instead of building a big narration. And what we were saying earlier about giving ourselves freedom to experiment and to play is also this notion of how we can manipulate data to our own purposes. So they serve us also in a way. So this is something we're discussing right now. How can we use, for example, small changes to introduce huge changes in our system, so they're not 100% representative to the reality, but they're shaping a new reality. So this becomes a tool of a narration, but also a tool of a non-narration, because it's not so easy to say what's happening in a given point. Yeah.
This is super. I think this residency brought something really interesting, like this playfulness, sensors, real-time situation. And what Sylvia said, and I want to reflect on that, something very important. I mean, like, the narrative is super important if you have some idea, because it's not just building, presenting the technology possibilities, but also giving some kind of context in experience. But what Sylvia also said, that you are thinking about the situation of the exhibition, that you need to adjust to the venue, you need to adjust to the exhibition and the narrative of the exhibition somehow. So do you think about different way to scale this installation, of different variation of this installation, or do you have any plans to work on a next iteration of this, or is it something what you will do after this residency, after the exhibition?
I think one big aspect where we haven't completely decided ourselves yet how the exhibition will look like is how will it be presented inside the space itself. So for example, you could imagine it as just an installation on a wall or freestanding, but depending on the space, we might also try to build actually a smaller biodome inside of the exhibition space to sort of separate it from the rest of the exhibition, which of course would come with whole different implications, both for the concept as well as for the technical aspects, for the sensor readings and so on. So I think that's that's one way how we're currently thinking about the form that the work could take in the future. And then one thing that I also find interesting is the idea of that throughout the exhibition, what we will do is to collect all this data and maybe to then also create something as a final output from all this data collection. But it's something that we still have to explore as well. But I would like the idea that the project would sort of produce another work in the end that is then more stable, that is then this like fixed collection of some kind of data.
So it is like everything is in the process and can bring different results. So I believe you will continue working on that and develop something else, maybe from it, or take it to the next level of the research. But as I understand, you would like to keep as a part of this work the agency for people who are entering the piece, and that's why I'm thinking. I know that Sylvia said you said a bit about agency, that it's important for you, but maybe how this agency relates to the algorithm you are using. Maybe you can reflect on it a bit more.
I mean, I feel like the thing that has most agency in this project is the noise actually, because it's actually dictating what's really happening there sometimes. But yeah, I guess the agency is, I kind of wonder if it's a matter of agency or of consent, because data is being collected and you can consent to it or not. Obviously, it's not personal data. It's not it's not that can be used in any way, and it's so obfuscated by all the other factors inside of the space that of course it's not directly influential or directly collected, but yeah, I think what Winter mentioned before about entering the system, that you are entering the system, and I guess the agency you have is to enter or exit the system that you're a part of, that you don't even know that you're a part of. Yeah, so, but yeah, also, as we said before, there's this agency to try to influence the installation if you choose to. If you blow into one of the sensors, then it will actually cause a change. We tried it. So there are ways to influence it, but the agency maybe is not so direct there in this case.
I would say that agency is very minimal, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is any. And very often I also think about ecological management in this concept, also because our work works with plants and biodomes and gardens. Maybe they're not real, but they are alive for some time, for the time of the exhibition. And I also think sometimes I haven't shared this thought with my colleagues here, so I don't know what they think, but I also sometimes think in this context also about our agency to the nature in general, like apart from this project, that it's similar in a way that we have some agency, but we can't influence the system on the whole as an individual either.
Yes, I also I am thinking right now about your other work, Swarm, and that there is something like a social agency. When we are all together, we can bring a change in the system. Yeah, but I ask about agency because I think we nowadays we have really not many agency around our data. Everywhere we are like giving some data from our behaviors, and we don't really know what is happening after that, yeah, with our data. So I think it's good if people can have a kind of transparency how the data are used, and it's also kind of agency that you really understand the way the system is using your data. So like to be really transparent at the beginning when people are when you are doing this onboarding for people that they understand that they can influence the environment, and the change in the environment is actually something what is changing the installation, as I understand. It's not really like how much I am breathing, but the result of my breathing. Yeah, so it's not maybe the same when we used really sensitive data or the data from our body directly, but it's still some kind of touch of data.
I would also like to add to this idea, Ula, what you mentioned with the agency of nature, because I think I also haven't thought about it this way, but I think this is also kind of what you can see in the development of the Biosphere 2 project and what you described with the issues that it faced, because all the problems that were caused, or at least a lot of them, were also caused by things like weather, for example, by these unpredictable factors, by natural phenomenons. And this and the main reason why this artificial nature inside the biodome didn't work out was because it was this very limited version of that. It wasn't really nature, it was more like a simulation of it, an artificial plasticky version of that. So not so different to our 3D models. And the reason why it failed was because of this agency, if you want to describe it as that, or just this outside influence of the system that is Earth and leaking inside of it, which is in a way also quite funny because they wanted to simulate the spaceship Earth, and in a way they proved it that they could not escape spaceship Earth, that it is actually this kind of this kind of all-encapsulating system. So I think there you can actually already see what you described as agency of nature, if I understood you correctly.
Yeah, also, that there is no escape, probably. That
So I think we can wrap up and finish with we are finishing with the reflection on data. But one more question, maybe two more questions. What does sovereignty mean today in the world of data? What do you think? How do you think about it? And also, do you agree with Shoshana Zuboff's view that behavioral data can reduce our embodied presence to signals that predict or even control us?
I will start with the first question, maybe. So I will separate them a little bit in my head for now. So the first question was the role of data in its relation to sovereignty. So I would interpret that for now as like the sovereignty or of the state, the authority of the state, or formerly the authority of the sovereign as the king. And I think one of the main topics nowadays in politics surrounding data is this conflict between the sovereignty of the state and the power of private corporations. So looking back when states started to create these massive data sets, starting with the introduction of CCTV and so on, during the digital age, really in the 80s and so on. This kind of data collection, it was really a state monopoly. Like no one else had access to this kind of to these kinds of massive data sets, massive for the time. And then in the 80s, for example, I think there were a lot of protests, for example, against just the census of being counted, including your most basic personal data, such as age, gender, and so on. But a lot of people were protesting that, and they're trying to refuse becoming part of the census. But then fast forward in the 2000s, this state monopoly slowly shifted towards these Web 2.0 companies, which were then able to create much more sophisticated and much more personalized data sets from their users. For some reason, for which I also don't have an explanation completely, but for some reason, the users of these Web 2.0 platforms, social media, of course, especially, much more willing to give all their private information to these companies than to the state. So in the 80s, people are still protesting these now seemingly basic sensors, and now we're giving every day much more information to these private companies. And not only is it like any kind of company, but usually it's also foreign companies from, let's say, European perspective, Silicon Valley companies that we talked so much already before. So I think there is now this power struggle between the state and these private companies, because of course these data sets are very attractive for every state. And while they still increase and expand their own data collection as well, I mean, they can never compete with these web companies. So I think, yeah, through this perspective, some of this regulation that has been introduced in recent years by the European Union, for example, you could also see it not at least not entirely about the protection of individual rights, but also as a protection of their own sovereignty to possess the data of their citizens themselves and keep them in their countries instead of, yeah, having everything being sent off to the US. And this also extends to infrastructure to a degree as well, to the infrastructure that handles all this data. There are so many discussions, for example, if it is a good idea to use Huawei products, for example, in essential European infrastructure, especially in the military, because then all these Huawei technologies, of course, also come with their own software with potential backdoors as well. So some countries decided to use Huawei products for the infrastructures, others are not. And my perception there's in general maybe a bit of a bigger sensibility for this in Eastern Europe, for one reason, because of the historic experience with information control, and of course because of the current experiences with the cyber war. And what is kind of ironic about the situation is that for Ukraine, in a way, it was actually beneficial to rely on foreign actors in a way, because then in the early days of the invasion, a lot of critical government data was shifted with the help of the big tech monopolies like Microsoft and Amazon and Google from Ukraine to other European countries and of course to the US, so that this infrastructure is outside of the primary war zone. So in this case, it was actually good for the national sovereignty to rely on foreign companies. So it's a bit of an ironic development. And I think in general, we can see that, this state sovereignty in relation to data is becoming less about keeping the data in your country, that the data is in a certain place, but more that it is secure, in some other way. I think, it's hard to say like where this development is going. But another interesting example is also Estonia, which is developing a lot of innovations in the area of e-governance. So, for example, they also have now so-called data embassies, one in Luxembourg at least, where they also back up all their critical government data so that it's also safe outside of Estonia in the worst case scenario. So there was a lot. Sorry about that. But those are my thoughts about
it's great. And also, I think it's a bit relevant to one of the questions from the public. Do you agree with Shoshana? Maybe Ula or Sylvia, would you like to finish this wrap-up question?
I mean, yes, I agree. I could end it on that, but I could also, I think first of all, as soon as any kind of data is collected, and especially behavioral data, after it's been collected, even if you think it's collected in a safe way, it's already been collected, and you never know where it might end up. And I think this is also why a lot of us proceed with caution when it comes to this. And I think the danger also with data being used as a tool for control and surveillance is, first of all, because it's control and surveillance and we don't want that, but also because data is considered as empirical. It's considered as observed reality, but in reality it's not, because it's data, it's collective. And if it's for example, of a project, it's sensor data. It's already filtered. It's already smoothed by the sensors. There's already working in the sensors themselves that manipulate this data. Even the fact if you decide to select only a specific reading of a specific kind of data, that already skews it so much. So there's also so many factors that make data unreliable, and that can also endanger any assumptions that are made about ourselves or about society. And yeah, and if that's used as a tool for control, even though it itself is not an observable truth, then I think there should definitely proceed with caution, and it's extremely dangerous.
Yeah, but also our bodies are perceiving data in different ways. So we
Yeah.
also really interpret data regarding to our own perception and culture, because our perception is trained by culture as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we can go to questions which we have from public. Would you like me to read them, or maybe yes? Should I read them? Okay, I will try to make it as I interpret this. What internal feelings or beliefs do you lean towards more? What are these artificial words, and are the projects aimed at escaping them, the utopia or new reality? This is something what I don't know if it's understandable. As the Canadian media theorist Marshall McLuhan mentioned, artists act like the early dew, predicting the future. The industry is also working on this, using the background of being on the brink of World War III. So what internal feelings or beliefs do you lean towards more?
So the question is if the exit projects are utopia or new reality?
Yeah, I think it's about this. Which perspective resonates more with you personally? Is it a new reality, or is it indeed utopia, and why?
I mean, I think the main problem with all of these exit projects is that they all rely on systems of exploitation in order to even be conceived to exist. I think that's already the first issue there, which leads my internal feelings towards negative. Because especially because they're using so many analogies to the Roman Empire, and very often systems that were also based on exploitation. Um, I definitely think that they are utopian in that aspect, but also heavily problematic and to be discussed and observed at the same time.
Yeah, I think like the part about maybe new realities of data, the words full of data we constantly live in are social media, and maybe we all know about it, but I think this is where we are controlled the most and our data is used against us the most, as algorithms are putting us in kind of bubbles of separate beliefs and very often make those bubbles polarize and be on two extreme ends, which then fuels some social conflicts. So yeah, that was a very general summary of what I feel is happening, but I feel also what this question here states, the brink of World War III is this rising polarization of the society, and it's one of the factors that is leading to the conflict.
Do you think your collective is like developing something what reflects the future?
I don't know if we are so far ahead. Like we just said, we just want to play with data a bit. And of course, we put research and thought process in our work. but I'm not sure if we are thinking about speculative futures and predicting
I mean, we would love to, though.
yeah.
I think the idea is that the collective can also obviously grow a lot in concept and members, and also how we distribute roles or even what kind of like governance system we decide for ourselves, or decide that there's no governance system and then it's just anarchy. Like I'm also really excited to kind of explore all the different modalities that this collective could exist in. But yeah, for now, I think it's in a very early stage.
For now, it's an anarchy.
Nice.
Um,
Yes, Marco, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would say that the project definitely deals in so far with the future as these exit projects. They all envision something, a new future, a new model of society. And I think that's in so far interesting as it is like, yeah, it is actually a utopian for those who believe in these projects. And but nowadays I think the idea of the utopia in general has come under a lot of scrutiny. That for I think most of us nowadays it is very difficult to imagine a kind of utopian future or to imagine any model for the future altogether. But the problem is if we don't do that, if we cannot come up with any model for the future, then others will. Then these kind of Silicon Valley think tanks, they will. And then this is what the models for the future will look like. And we can see it now in the United States happening in real time, how these seemingly ridiculous ideas become political reality. So I think what the project is also doing is actually taking this utopia and projecting it into the future and then letting it crash, because it's not its own vision for the future. They're for sure not, we're not that far yet, but there's a critique of that what some others have in mind for us.
And what it also does is, I think, it builds awareness that our environment is already using data, and this is a part of our reality, that there are humans, there is nature, there is technology and data, which are really like part of our surrounding, and it will be more and more used as a loop of our common life and behaviors we have. So it's a part of our life. But we still have one more question. Can you interpolate relevance of your project on political reality of Eastern and Central Europe, considering massive changes towards authoritarianism, sorry, and more isolated societies? It's very important question, because also this residency relates to this part of Europe, and there we know that propaganda countries are using data for political aims, and we can be manipulated by narratives with data. So, and visual culture, which is changed by some data manipulation. So what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think because our project, or we use the word exit so much, exit is also such a multifaceted concept in every way, that it doesn't also necessarily have to mean exiting and creating your new sovereign state somewhere in the Mediterranean or on the sea. It can also mean creating social divisions, or actively deciding to step away from society and social structures. So I feel like in this way, this project does relate to also the rise of authoritarianism and movements that also kind of want to create their own self-contained systems that are also, let's say, governed in a way that doesn't encourage a mutual social progression, but instead isolates thought and isolates people into certain social stratas. That's from me.
Yeah, I think it's a really complex question, and
It's a bit, it's a lot to unpack also.
yeah, and also it's something what I think it's present in our life. People from Eastern Europe think about the way government and the war and everything around it, politicians are using data. So I think also our past is resonating with us. We are very careful and we examine the way data are used. So I mean, for the visual culture, for how politicians use the visual culture and data and deepfakes and everything, we are very very carefully watching what is given to us. And yes, and I believe we should ask someone from maybe from France or Spain, countries which are really like on the other side, how they think about data and just compare answers, because right now I think it's part of our life, but we are not really reflecting on it. We just behave. We just include it in our own actions without thinking about it. Yes, yes, Marco?
No, I mean, I think I also said my part already a little bit earlier on this, but what I could add is that I mean, yeah, that there definitely is also this historic linkage between fascism and surprisingly a certain optimism towards technology. And I think, yeah, this has unfortunately returned in this form once again. And what has happened also because these technology the things that are possible regarding surveillance and data collection have expanded so much in the last 10 years is that these spots where you could still slip through the system, where you could disappear, are getting smaller and smaller. It's yeah, really these, yeah, you could call it a third space. There are a lot of words for these kinds of things, but yeah, basically to live, yeah, outside the state's authority, these spaces are increasingly shrinking just because of the technology, because the technology yeah, allows for that. And yeah, I don't know. I can't really have like a optimistic alternative answer to that either. But of course, there are also ways in which technology can be used to connect outside of yeah, state structures. So, for example, in some protests, you rely on Bluetooth alone as a communication method so that they can use their phones and form new communication networks just with their phones temporarily so that they cannot be surveilled externally. And also recently we've seen the development in Nepal, which also shows how then in these yeah, kind of moments of crisis, people can form their own unique ways of communication outside of the state still, and yeah, find a way to yeah to escape the script. So yeah, there are still some possibilities, but you have to be very creative, I think, to find them nowadays. Though, yeah, I mean the amount of new opportunities, it goes both ways. There are more opportunities to escape as well. But yeah, the surveillance goes stronger still. So yeah, it's this ongoing yeah, this ongoing competition.
Yeah, and also I have this feeling right now that we are back to the social media and the promise that we had from social media, that this is very democratic, and that we actually can change the world with using social media, and we have some power, and we know right now that it was one of the main source for the artificial intelligence and surveillance capitalism. So we are back to the question from the beginning, and I am super happy to wrap up this conversation. Thank you very much for our insights and thoughtful discussion about your project. I hope I will be able to enter this system and ruin it, or maybe I will find this sustainable way of interacting with the environment and algorithm. So I wish you the best. In June 2006, we are seeing each other in Prague, and maybe you would like to give some comment, Mihailo, for this meeting to close up.
Oh, I'm really thankful for you all for this really interesting discussion and talk, and the globality of it. I really love that it touches so many topics. Through this project, we can speak about so many things from so many places around the world. It was really inspiring and really interesting, and now I'm really interested to see the final installation, how it look like. So can't wait to see your work in Prague. Thank you so much. It was an amazing conversation. You will be able also to see it later online in recording. Yeah, special thanks to Veronika for this amazing moderation and questions. Of course, we couldn't do this without you, and the level of knowledge is not something that we can boast about. It was amazing. Thank you. And then thank you so much everyone who listened to us, and see you in the next events.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.